So we are going to start way back at the beginning, long before I was born. So just to give you a little backstory on how I ended up where I currently am. So my parents were both on-camera reporters. This is my dad. Ooh, hold on. Hang on.
And this was high on the list.
Hang on, sorry, we're freezing. We did test this before. All right, we're just gonna have to do it this way. Stand by. Okay. And that's my mom in that striped dress. Dad. Mom interviewing someone. And so when I was born, they had great hopes that I could kind of follow in their footsteps. This is my actual birth announcement. And as you can see, it is like a movie announcement. It says opening to heavy reviews. Thank you very much. And this is actually from my birth announcement. Incredible, a major event. Even I was impressed. I'm not a crook. Now, unfortunately, when it came time to actually prove myself on camera, it didn't quite go as planned.
There you go. All right, this is the Amy the Baby Show, starring Amy the Baby. That was well done. What are you going to do for your second act?
What are you doing? Are you eating that microphone? What is you do? Are you putting it in your ears? Walking around? Oops, who's got a little cord wrapped around her ankle? Okay, let's walk over to Daddy. Let's go see Daddy. Let's go see Daddy. Oops.
So from that point on, could you guys hear that? No, okay, cool. So from that point on, I was banished behind the camera. So I became a producer and a director and a kind of avid documentarian. And it was my dream to travel all around the world. This is all me at work. That's a tiny house show. So I was always obsessed with, growing up, I was super into international, everything international. And when I was 20, so in 1999, if you want to know how old I am, I went on semester at sea, and I was especially interested in Africa. So this is in Cape Town, in the townships back in 1999. You see my manual camera around my neck with black and white film in it. This is in the townships. We have stickers on us. This is Vietnam. And so here are some pictures I took. This is Kenya in a Mouhasi village. This is all in black and white film back in the day, so you didn't know what it looked like till you got it back. Mouhasi village. Another one. This is Vietnam. Vietnam. India. India. So then I was able to finally find a job that allowed me to travel as well, but I continued to travel on my own too. So this is over Bermuda. This is for a job for the Travel Channel. But for me with traveling, it's much more about, so a lot of people go traveling to see the sights. And for me, I'm kind of the opposite of that. I tend to avoid the super touristy places and the sights. And even though they're cool to see, I'll go look at them occasionally. But for me, it's all about the people. So the people that you meet, this is a guy who was a Cambodian genocide survivor in North Carolina. So I met him on a food show in North Carolina. He has a really crazy story, and he's a very, very cool guy. This is Chicago, some people in a barbecue place on the south side. Martha's Vineyard. New Jersey. Bermuda, Alaska, India. So it's all about the connections you make, the culture you get to be a part of. This is Costa Rica. And the animal connections too. So this is a sea lion project when sea lions were dying in Southern California and they weren't sure why. Sled dogs in Alaska.
And it is also all about the occasional boyfriend you meet on the road.
Amy, we just lost your audio.
Alaskan dogs. Oop. Can you guys hear me still?
We couldn't, but you're back.
Oh, so did you miss my boyfriend joke? Where did I leave you?
I missed it, but I don't know if anyone else heard, but I heard the sled dogs. That's the last time I heard.
Okay, so these are Alaskan sled dogs. Hold on, let me just see, make sure my mic isn't. I said, and occasionally you get to find a boyfriend. So this is on the road. So this is boyfriend number one, Trax, and then boyfriend number two, Blake, and they don't know about each other, but they both live in Alaska. So the story then skips to a show called Prospectors that I was working on for the Weather Channel in 2015, and it was shot all up on 14,000 foot peaks in Colorado. And I guess just here, you know what, Sarah, I'm gonna put my camera on you just so you can flag me if you can't hear me anymore. If I can find you, I might not be able to find you actually. Everyone start waving if you can't hear me and I'll see somebody's face. So I was on Prospectors, and we would film all up on 14,000 foot peaks in Colorado. And it was pretty intense and gnarly, and we would camp up here too. We would also shoot in underground tunnels. This is up on Mount White, which is next to Antero over in the Salida area. So this is when we would camp, and whenever we camped, we needed to hire extra people to help us lug all our camera gear up there. So that was my tent for 2 summers. That was my spot, and my friend Callie that's on this too, we would alternate trips, and that was the girl tent, this green one. That was where they cooked the food down there. So enter Chandra. So Chandra, we were looking for people who could help carry stuff up, and Chandra was a Summit County local at the time. He now lives in Alaska, and he was from Nepal. And my friend was like, I know someone from Nepal who can, who's a mountain guide, and he can help you carry stuff up. So this is us around the campfire. So I was talking to Chandra one night on the show, we were filming, and we were relaxing around the campfire, and I was like, I really want to travel somewhere when Prospectors is over. I'm not sure where to go. And he's like, well, I'm from Nepal. The earthquake just happened. I was planning to lead this trek. He and his wife have a trekking company called Himaluna Adventures. I was planning to lead this trek, but the earthquake happened. Almost everyone dropped out just except for 2 people. So I have room if you want to come, and it's super local. It goes to my home village. It's super non-touristy. You'll meet my family. And I was like, oh my God, what should I do? So the trek, I think his whole trip was 3 weeks. And I talked to my friend Nathan, who also works in television, who had spent a lot of time living in Tibet and Nepal. And he's like, do not go for 3 weeks. He said, buy a one-way ticket, drop whatever you're doing, buy a one-way ticket. I promise you won't regret it. So this is Chandra and I in Salida. So sure enough, I bought a one-way ticket to Nepal, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but Nepal is a tiny little country in between India and China, and it borders Tibet, and it's close to Bhutan. So I bought the one-way ticket and went with Chandra to Nepal. This is us in Nepal, and was planning to travel with him for a few weeks, and then I was going to go travel by myself and see what happened. This is Chandra in Nepal, and we were wearing face masks before they were cool. We were very ahead of our time. It's dusty in Nepal. So this is, something I had always wanted to do, whenever when the Haiti earthquake happened and then the Nepal earthquake happened, I really wanted to find a way to volunteer with earthquake recovery. And it was actually harder than you would think to find someone who would take in someone random to help. You kind of have to be involved with these organizations for a long time. But this is just some of the earthquake damage in Nepal when I was there. This is 2015, so probably like 4 or 5 months after the earthquake. Red Cross tents. Actually, this might have been 2016. Some of these pictures are mixed in. Like a year later, it was still things were down. So these are tents people were living in who were displaced. These are old, super historic sculptures that are not sculptures, that like whatever they're called, site things that important things that were crumbled. Here's some earthquake damage. You can see the top of the building here is cracked. And you can see all the rubble on the right, and then the kids kind of running through, just building rubble. This is a tent camp where people were still living. Tent camps. A lot of Chinese support, looks like. Oh, I already saw that. So this is where a building used to be, and it's completely gone. More rubble. So anyway, aside from the earthquake, we're in Nepal, and the cool thing about Nepal, one of the big things about Nepal is how it sounds. Like no matter where you are, there's different sounds, and they're all really interesting. So I'll just play you a little bit of the little honks here. So that was Tamil, which is in downtown Kathmandu, and the way they communicate there is with a bunch of honks. So you always hear a beep, 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 and it's just how people let each other know that they're around. It's not like being in New York where everyone honks. So this is Chandra in front. So he's the one that I went over with on his trek. He was the one from the States. And then that's his best friend Kaji, who became one of my super good friends as well. So these are just some local people, and the one recurring theme in Nepal is just joy. It's like the most gentle, beautiful country full of the most beautiful people ever. Like if I was to, this captures the feeling of the country pretty much wherever you go, that and this, two little kids holding hands. So we started driving. So we drove from Kathmandu to Pokhara, where we started our trek. So this is just on the way. We stopped in a couple little towns. But then we started noticing that there was an issue happening. And basically, pretty much right after I had landed, India and Nepal got into a dispute. And India was the main source of Nepal's fuel, and India cut off the fuel to Nepal because they were mad about a border dispute. So the fuel started to run out in the country, and you can see all these motorcycles waiting for a tank of gas. But, and so here's people, everyone started riding on the tops of buses because they had to pack more people into buses because there were fewer buses because there wasn't enough gas. Notice in all of these pictures, people are smiling. They're like, yeah, it's cool. People would be in these big long lines. I never once saw anyone push, anyone shove, anyone swear. Everyone's just chilling, waiting. Sometimes they would wait for weeks or a week for a tank of gas. Buses waiting. And you think, just going back here, I mean, you think about, you know, myself included, if someone, you know, cuts you off in the gas line and how mad you get. And here it's just that whole idea of this is my lane, this is my spot in line is I mean, I'm sure it exists, but you really can't feel it. Everyone's just peaceful and patient. And this would be just absolute mass chaos if it happened in the States. So these are buses lined up. So we finally got to where we were going, and we started the trek. And this, I can't see the screen who is on, but this is Chandra's mom. So we got to meet Chandra's mom and hike up to her home village the first couple of days with her. So that was pretty cool. So she walks 2 days to get home from town. That's me. These are out of order, but this is Chandra's family in another village we stopped in, different family. This is a chicken in their home with some smoke from the fire from inside. I think that's like Chandra's nephew or cousin or something. So here's Chandra, Kaji, and then in the red mask, again, we were before our time, is Harka, who is our porter. So my feeling was I was going to carry anything that was extraneous, like my yoga mat, like any toiletries, my extra jackets. But then if you ever do a trek in Nepal, and I highly recommend going with Chandra and Debbie's company, because it's not like a company, it's a completely personal experience. I do recommend getting a porter, even though I like to carry heavy things and I'm pretty strong, but it was definitely worth it. And I carry my camera gear too. So this is all in the Annapurna region, but it was not the Annapurna circuit. So it was completely off the beaten path. A lot of these places, they hadn't seen very many white people at all. Sorry, there's some repeats in here. So we did a homestay, and this is our Nepali, I think it's Amma, which is mom, if I'm getting that right, in Nepali. And when I talk about not really wanting to go to the sites, but wanting to connect with the people, I mean, couldn't even share language, but it was like we knew each other our whole life. She looks serious in this shot, but she's not. She was so awesome. She took care of us. That's her husband. This is the official goat standing on a yak's head picture, just for your enjoyment. So when we went, and I'm trying to see if Chandra and Debbie are on this, I can't tell, but we went, this is in his home village of Nangi, and it was, I believe the holiday was Dosai. And so they do all these blessings, and they put what's called tika. All over Nepal, you get tika, which is like something on like kind of the dot on your forehead, but with paint or rice. It's a blessing. So we went to his family's house, and they were doing a ceremony, and then I got it too. So super local. There are no tourists for miles, and this was really, really special. This is the same shoes that were up in Colorado, drying off at a hut. And so on this trek, you stay in these community huts. So we saw barely anyone the whole time that was a tourist, but all the money goes from these huts back into the communities to support them. And they're pretty basic. They're not fancy, but they do the trick. This is all on the Annapurna range. Those are some of the Annapurnas behind me. That's Annapurna 1 behind me, or in front of me. And so I don't know if this is a yak or a yow. A yow is a yak cow, and I don't really know the difference, but I think that's a yak. So this is the highest we went on this trek was up to 12,000 something feet to a place called Kopra. And then here's some video of a yak or a yow. I don't know if you can hear them, but they're really cool animals. We did not stay in tents, but some people did, and you can. We stayed in, very basic community lodge. These are, so this region tends to be more Hindu. So these are kind of Hindu offerings. And then the Everest region, which we'll get to in a bit, is more Buddhist. So you'll find these all along the trail. So they're like nice little reminders, especially I come from the yoga world, to be mindful and maybe say a little prayer. This is overlooking coming up or down from Kopra. So we did go up into snow. I think we hiked to almost 14,000 and then came back down to 12. This is our awesome porter, Harka. Annapurnas. These are some steps going up to the hike on the trek. So this is, I wish it was closer, but this is one of the lodges. And so those of you that are from Colorado, they're very much like ski huts, like the summit huts, maybe not quite as nice as some of the nicer ones, but the more basic summit huts, it's kind of that similar experience. People all over Nepal carry stuff by hand or by foot because you can't get machinery. A lot of these places are cars. So it's either you carry it or an animal carries it. And everyone is so nice. This guy was in the Gorkha army. And prayer flags everywhere. So it's just super peaceful everywhere. Like the sounds of Nepal are amazing. So we finished the trek and we got back to Pokhara, and this was actually one of my favorite parts. There's a Tibetan, I'm super interested in Tibetan culture, and the people in Tibet who had to evacuate when they started killing off people, a lot of them evacuated over to Nepal, but it's really interesting. They're stateless, so they don't really have nationality in any country. So they live in these settlements and don't have a lot of rites. It was really interesting. This is a monastery there, and the people are incredible, and the Tibetan culture is amazing, and I want to go back here. So if you go to Pokhara, find this Tibetan tour, and I can look it up, and it's just look up Tibetan tour in Pokhara. It's like the best thing ever. And we went to people's houses and found out all about their struggles and had tea with them. This is in a Tibetan monastery. That's a traditional Tibetan dog in the settlement. So got back to the city, and just note how smiley the police officer is, and you can even see the army guys in the background, super smiley. This is not really something you would see in the States. I believe the president or somebody was about to drive, but this is during like mass, turmoil. There were gas crises and everything going on, and the people in charge, I'm sure not always, but they noticeably smile, and that's just very different from what we may see here. So the gas crisis started to get way worse, and so people had to use fire to cook because they didn't even have gas for their stoves. And that also made the towns a lot more polluted. Stores started closing, so this, I believe, is a food store that closed. You can see all the motorcycles lined up, people just waiting for gas, just calm as can be, waiting forever. It's pretty mind-blowing. You can see people are smiling, hanging around, waiting. It's just, whenever I come back from Nepal, I come back as a better person, just from the people. And it's really hard to imagine how bad the crisis was, but just to give you a parameter, I started shooting this video miles into the, we had been driving past this for minutes and minutes and minutes, and finally I'm like, I'm going to take out my camera because this is never ending, and this just gives you an idea. I had already been going for miles. These are all people waiting for gas. So you can't even really imagine, and this is just more, that's just crazy. And they would literally wait for at minimum of a week, and this is right after the earthquake, so everyone was struggling. Anyway, and this guy, his name is Satya, which means truth in Sanskrit. He owned this little shop, and he had just lost, this day that I was talking to him, he had lost everything in the earthquake, and he, at this moment, had just come back from waiting for 5 days for enough gas to cook with. But he said he was still happy because he had what he needed. So just totally different way of being. So I had really wanted to volunteer with earthquake relief, and I hadn't had much luck reaching out to the big organizations. So through Facebook, I was connected with friends of friends of friends who lived in Nepal. And these guys here became my Nepali brothers, and they totally adopted me. And for a couple weeks, I was with them. And you'll see the following year, I came back and I brought my parents, and brought my parents to stay at one of their hotels as well, where I had stayed. So they're super awesome. So they connected me with a bunch of opportunities to help volunteer. And they had, a bunch of them had also lost their homes themselves, but they were still volunteering to help other people. So this is them all painting a school that had been damaged in the earthquake, and being super happy about it. So this is putting a little bit of fuel that you can find in the motorcycle out of a soda bottle. And this is in order to save gas. We coined the Nepali sandwich. So we would ride 3 on these tiny little mopeds to get around. So they also hooked me up with this volunteer job. So for a couple weeks, I taught English in a Nepali school, and this is learning body parts with head, shoulders, knees, and toes song. And any of you guys that are teachers, honestly, volunteering for 2 weeks with kids was the hardest job of my entire life. And I don't know how those of you that are full-time teachers do it. I super commend you, because, and these are Nepali kids, so they're, I don't know if they're in some ways more well-behaved than other kids, but at the same time, they're very wild. Like all kids are. Kids are the same everywhere, but so cute. And it was so hard, and it was awesome. And barely anyone spoke any English. They're so cute. So they do morning prayer. That was one of my class. This class was my favorite, but they were very naughty. This was my naughtiest class. They did not ever listen to me, but they're really cute. Luckily for them. So this was interesting. So, I mean, we had no shared language at all. So the woman all the way on the right, if you can see my cursor, I don't know, but she's the principal, and she was related to my friends that I call my Nepali brothers. So I couldn't, these are all the teachers. They were so nice to me. We couldn't speak at all. So like literally I didn't even like know their names until after they all friended me on Facebook, and now I know their names, but like we just like, they were the nicest people, but we would all just like kind of smile and nod, and they're so sweet. And when I left, this is me getting tikka from the principal. They did a little ceremony before, because I was going to Everest, to keep me safe, which is very sweet. So this is in Bhaktapur, which is a town in Nepal. It's Hindu, and so these are Hindu incense offerings. And these are people, I believe, doing like Hindu prayers in the street. It's just a couple goats not standing on a yak's head. My Nepali brothers. So this is they're from the Nawari tribe, and this was a rice harvest on their land. So with the Nawari tribe, they eat beaten rice, which is the stuff, and this is a traditional Nawari meal. So this wouldn't necessarily be traditional in Nepal, but in their tribe. So the beaten rice is the stuff in the middle, and it's kind of like flat, not Rice Krispies, but almost like flat dried rice. So that's what they were doing in the field. And at this time, it was the Dosai Festival, where they build these gigantic swings all over the country, and you can go on these swings. This is my one girlfriend, Angela, that I met staying here. She's awesome. And so this is my last night with my Nepali brothers, and we all went out to dinner, and they were super awesome. And I'm still in touch with them. I have to often turn off my ringer at night because I get on the Nepali brother group text, and my phone dings. So I had met Kaji on the last trek with Chandra, Chandra's best friend Kaji, and he's from the Everest area. So when I had first decided to go to Nepal, I did not know that like a normal person could go to Everest to base camp. So when I found out, I was obsessed with the idea of going, and Kaji's from this area. So we took a small plane from Kathmandu, and I think one of those might be Everest, probably that one all the way to the left here. And we landed in the town of Lukla, which is about similar elevation as Breckenridge. It's in the 9,000s. And here are some of Kaji's family. And so you acclimate there for a day. So this is the Everest Trail. And so that's Kaji and our porter, Junga, who's awesome, who we brought back the next year too. So I had been walking for like a half a day, and I randomly saw like almost no one was there. Oh, I forgot to mention, we got on the last flight out of Kathmandu because there was no fuel. So we got on literally the last flight, and I think a few more happened to trickle in through the week, but that was it. Like, so there's barely there were barely any travelers on the trail. I had walked for like a half a day and saw a couple Americans and started talking to them. It turns out that they had worked on Prospectors, the show that brought me here in the first place, and we were on different crews, and we all happened to be in Nepal at the same time. So that was this. That's us hiking. So there's suspension bridges everywhere. I do have a fear of heights, but I was not afraid on the suspension bridges. My mom, who came back the following year, might tell you differently about her experience, but I trusted them. I think they're fun to cross, but they're everywhere. So that's something to consider if you go. Porters carry stuff everywhere. Big, hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And so people in the US call them Sherpas. Sherpas are actually kind of people that are native to this region, the Everest region, which is also called the Khumbu. So truly they're porters. Porters can be any kind of tribe or ethnicity, not necessarily Sherpa, which is the actual people, but the people who climb Everest are referred to as Everest Sherpas or climbing Sherpas. These are momos, my favorite Nepali food. They have like chicken and vegetables in them. Suspension bridges. This is getting up higher. So everywhere you go, these are the Buddhist stupa, like places of worship. I'm spacing the name still, but Buddhist offering places. So again, the only way to get things in this region is foot, animal, or the second year I was there, once there was fuel, there was actually quite a bit of helicopter traffic, but basically no car or ATV is going up here. So here are donkeys on the suspension bridge. And then this is Namche Bazaar. So this is up in the 10,000 something range. And it's like a bustling city that's just up there that you can't drive to, you have to walk to. So this is where I stayed at the Hilton, which is a combination of Hillary and Tenzing from the Everest history, but they didn't accept my points, which I was kind of upset about. And I was kind of traveling, that was a joke. I was traveling by myself besides with Kaji, my Nepali friend. So I ended up meeting these two girls, and I can't tell if Katie's on the call, but she said she was going to, but we'll come back to Katie. But so these two girls, this is Yvonne from Hawaii and Katie from the UK, but she was living in Australia at the time. So we kind of would follow each other on the trail, and the three of us became friends. This is an Everest Base Camp museum that's up at like 11,000 feet on the trail, and it gives you the whole history. Those are old oxygen tanks. And again, the sounds of Nepal, these mani wheels are prayer wheels, Buddhist prayer wheels all over the trail. So it's pretty peaceful, and you can spin them and make, say a prayer. This is, that's actually, can you guys see my cursor? Will someone nod if you can see my cursor? Okay, so this is actually Everest right here. It never looks big, no matter what, it's weird. Mani wheels. This guy, Antare, when it comes to the personal connection stuff, he could not speak or hear. We ran into him on the trail, and through a series of American/Nepali sign language, totally bonded with him, and we were telling each other stories with our hands. And he was the most happy person ever. He just like exuded joy, even though he couldn't speak or hear. And his job is obviously very hard. He carries hundreds of pounds up and down these mountains. That's Kaji singing to a little girl. So this is up at about 14,000 feet. And all along the way, this is the Buddhist prayer for compassion. It's Om Mani Padme Hum. So it's little reminders to be mindful along the way. That's Amadablam in the back, one of my favorite mountains. This is an acclimation day at 14 something. These are horses kissing. Yaks. So the sounds of Nepal, the sounds are strong everywhere. So this is Everest right here. And I think that's Lhotse next to it. But it looks small, so really surprising. That does not look like how you would imagine Everest looks. This is a traditional Nepali meal, although I'm wondering if this wasn't from Everest because there's meat on this plate, and meat is harder to come by. So this is Dal Bhat, which is lentils and rice. That's more traditional, and Nepali locals eat it multiple times a day. This is where the monastery is in Tengboche, where a lot of the people climbing Everest get blessed. If you read Into Thin Air, this is their whole path. And this is a place up there that had, it was a bakery with cappuccino, and espresso is really hard to find in Nepal, so that was the score. So we ran into Antare again, and this happened 2 more times. So the guy that couldn't speak or hear, and it was just the most joyful thing, and we were besties. Dusty, so as you get higher and higher, this is probably at like 16,000 feet, but you can see the trail's not technical at all, and it starts to get sandy, actually. We ran into him again. It was very cool. Dal Bhat, traditional rice and lentils. I'm going to cruise through some of these because I just looked at the time and I have more to share. This is us salsa dancing on the way there. So we were practicing because we decided we were going to have a talent show when we got to base camp. So you can see that like there's barely anyone in any of these pictures. These are memorials to people who have passed away, a lot of the Sherpa people on the way up. So this is at like 16-ish thousand feet. So it's totally not jagged. You're not going to fall off the edge. You can just walk if you can handle the altitude. Sandy, Junga or Porter. So those of you that have read Into Thin Air or seen the movie, that's Scott Fischer's memorial, who was one of the leaders of the expedition. And this is a big memorial to one of the main Sherpa people who passed away. So this is base camp. So nobody was at base camp when we were there, but our group of people we had met along the way. And it was because of the fuel crisis. I've heard that now, like, there's not a soul there. So this was not, the earthquake had happened in the spring, so the climbing season got canceled. And then with the fuel crisis, no one could get there. So normally this would be like a sea in May or April, it would be a sea of tents. This was in the fall, so normally there would just be a sea of people like me trekking, but there was nobody. So this is the ice fall. So this is like the super dangerous part that everyone, is concerned about toward the bottom of Everest. And you can't actually hike up to the top. That's actually the peak, I believe. So this is like base camp, where normally there's, my friends have told me that have gone in subsequent years that you have to wait for like an hour or a half hour to get your place in line. But it was just us, and we had a talent show. So this is a traditional dance they were doing, and we were salsa dancing. There were various acts. They won first place, we won third place, and I think they got like a $20 bill and a piece of chocolate, and we got 3 cookies, digestive biscuits. Those are the prizes. So that's our crew with Katie, who I think is on the call somewhere. There she is. So this is all Everest Base Camp. The next day we hike up to Kalapatar, which is at 18,200 feet. And we had to leave really early, and then you see the sunrise on Everest. This is Everest, the one that looks smaller right here. Yeah, that's Everest right there. So it's really unassuming peak. This is coming back down. And then just the trail, cute kids, suspension bridges, monasteries, toilets, always important, earthquake damage, the end of the trail. This is back in Lukla, where they ran out of gas, and my plane never came for, we went for the flight, and all the flights were canceled because there wasn't enough gas, and I had a flight back to the States pretty soon after, and I didn't think I was going to be able to get out, but then the next day it did finally come. So I was able to get out, and if you look at this runway, it's like totally drops off into the abyss. This is supposed to be one of the most dangerous airports in the world, but it was just fine. My parents did it, you can do it too. Monkeys. I'm just going to kind of skip through these. I ended up going to a traditional wedding at the end. And then this is the coolest thing. So it's a fuel crisis. No one can get anywhere. And 2 of my Nepali brothers managed to find enough gas to come 45 minutes to the airport to say goodbye to me before I left. So that was just like, I don't know, people treat their friends there very, very well. Think about what a pain in the butt it is if we just had to, someone asked us to go to the airport to go pick them up, or if you're in Breck, go to Frisco. We're like, oh, really? And they like made it happen in the worst environment. This is Japan, where I got hit with camera karma when I got off the plane, and there was a TV crew. I was half asleep, and they tried to get me to film with them. It was like essentially like a Attack a Tourist show, where you go follow them around, but I showed them my reel from the beginning of the video, and they decided not to film with me. So this is something I highly recommend, is the traveling layover. So I was actually, when I had gone to Nepal, I bought a one-way ticket. And then after about 2 months, I was ready to move on. So my friends were in Hawaii, some of my friends from TV. So I was going to go over to see them, but I was able to book the ticket that it had like a 20-hour layover in Japan. So I got off the plane and walked around, and I did this 2 years in a row. So you get to see, this is Narita, a Buddhist temple in Narita. So I just got off the plane, walked around for multiple hours, and then got back on the plane, went to Hawaii. This is the Big Island, full of lava rock. So it's very different from the other islands and all these cool rock formations from the volcano, which is this. So this is one of the coolest experiences of my life, and I've done it twice, and I highly, 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 highly recommend it. So first of all, I'm super anti-captivity, so I would never recommend going to swim with dolphins in any sort of a tank or captive environment. But if you're an okay swimmer, you can go out on wild dolphin swims on the Big Island, and I think that they're called wild. Oh. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. It's called wild dolphin swims. And so basically they take you out on a boat to the middle of the ocean and drop you down. Or, you know, it's not quite that extreme, but you know, everyone gets off the boat, they find the pod of dolphins, and then the pod of dolphins swims by you. So this is all out in the wild. This is a dolphin, and I like, all of a sudden he turned and looked at me, and you can see I like pulled my hand back because I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like normally they just swim by, but he was like, who are you? So cool. And I didn't put video in here, but the sound they make, their sonar is like insane, and it just goes through you. And when you come out, you feel like a different person. It's just the coolest thing. This is, yeah, two years of it, these pictures are from, and it's just amazing. And I get really seasick, so I puke over the boat, it doesn't matter. It's like totally, it's just amazing. And you know, they're really careful not to stress out the animals so you don't get too close, but that's a big ray. And then I was not in the water for this. I stuck we had a tiger shark. This is my shot, but my body was not in the water. I stuck my GoPro down. We had a tiger shark off the coast of the Big Island, bow surfed the front of the boat for like 20 minutes. He just was like cruising. So I filmed with him. And then at this moment, I pulled my GoPro up because I thought we were going to collide. He started to come up, and I didn't want to actually touch him. So anyway, I'm glad I wasn't in the water for that. The next year, I was back in Hawaii for a show for Nat Geo, and these are turtles in Maui. North Shore of Maui, really cool, lots of turtles. And then this was on that same show. We went over to Kauai, and this is my favorite place on earth, the North Shore of Kauai. And it was super damaged by the flooding that happened about 2 years ago, I think. But I think I heard that the Callalao Trail is opening back up, and I can't tell if my friend Emily's on this, but she'd be able to tell us because she lives there. It's my favorite place on earth, the Callalao Trail. And I've been all the way to the end. You need a permit for the full hike, but you can just do a day hike to these locations, and it's incredibly gorgeous. Oh, this is on the Big Island. Okay, so fast forward a couple months later. I had loved Nepal so much that I had decided that I wanted to bring my parents back and show them a variation of the trip. So I was on a food show for Travel Channel in Greece, in Santorini, which is beautiful and highly recommend it, although I'd avoid the tourist seasons. That was a hike in Santorini. It's just beautiful there. And instead of having them send me back to the States, I did the traveling layover again, stopped in England, and flew myself back to Nepal. So I did go see a site in England because it was England, and Buckingham Palace is cool. So then my parents came back to me the next year in Nepal, and so this is the principal from before. She invited us to her house for dinner. So my parents went to the principal's house for dinner, getting more tika blessings. And this is awesome. It was like their Halloween, and so these are the kids singing essentially "Give Me Candy" in Nepali.
1, 2, 3, finish.
So pretty cute. There's Chandra and Kaji again, more momos. That's my mom braving the suspension bridges. It's my parents. And so they were able to do it. This is just, we didn't go as high with them. This is the view from one of the places we stayed. The biggest difference with when I went by myself and when I went with my parents is when I went by myself, I was in the $3 a night places that were pretty much all concrete block and just very, 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 very basic and cold. And when I went with my parents, we upped the budgets a little bit. So I didn't even know these places existed my first time. And it was incredible. I was almost like embarrassed to be on the Everest Trail staying in places that were this nice. But if you want to do it the, fancy way, it's not, for US prices, I think these places were like in the $100-something a night versus $3. So it's a lot for Nepal, but on a US basis, it's not that much. So that's a porter carrying a bunch of stuff, and I'll just breeze through these. It's my dad's, I won't say how old he turned on the trail, but he turned a big age on the trail, so we were celebrating. So the coolest thing that we did on this trek is we didn't go as high, so that's Everest again, but we splurged to stay at the Everest View Hotel, which is definitely something I recommend. It ended up being one of the coolest experiences up there with the dolphin swim and the first time we were at Everest Base Camp. So my parents weren't going to go to Everest Base Camp. That's at 17,600 feet. So this is at 12,500 feet. And there's only 6 rooms in this hotel. And this is everyone just hanging out, the guides and friends giving massages. But this is the view from my room. That's Everest right here and Amadablam. It's just insane. So super splurgy, totally worth it. That's Amadablam. Literally I walked out of my balcony and this is what I would see. So you'd see sunrise and sunset. That's Everest. This is Everest right here, the non-impressive looking one. And I'm just gonna breeze through all of these. Cool. So Katie, back to the human connection, Katie, who I had met on the Everest Trail, called me 2 years ago and said, hey, I'm getting married in Wales in 3 months. Can you come? So we went over to England. And she got married in a castle in Wales, which Wales was never on my list of places to go. And I was really impressed with it. It was very cool. This is inside the castle. This is their wedding. And so this is the moral of the story too. If it's all about the people you meet and the connections, then you have reasons to visit time and time again. So the Taj Mahal will always be there, but it won't bring you back to India 10 times. But when you meet people, you can go back and visit them and go to their weddings in other countries. This is the castle. So this is really cool wedding in a Welsh castle. And then we had just a really short period of time before we had to go back. So we went to the Welsh Coast and it's so cool. Highly recommend rural England and the Welsh Coast. Neither one was on my radar at all. Both are so cool, so charming, just gorgeous. And I would totally go back there and spend more time. It's waterfall. So that's the cool thing about meeting people too, is you end up going places that you would never otherwise go. It was just absolutely stunning. Little living thing on some coral. Which then randomly brings us to Alaska. So for my job, I've worked in Alaska quite a bit. It's quite the adventure. So most of the places I'm going to show you are down in this area or even further south. I haven't gone back up north. I've worked on a show called Building Alaska for a long time. That's actually Rainier on the way over to Alaska. Alaska's its own country. And so from the time you get off the plane, there are dead animals everywhere. It's like a dead zoo. It's bizarre. There's a grizzly. I mean, they're everywhere. This is in a hotel lobby. It's you're like, what? Any animal, you name it. And things like this, no loaded weapons inside, triple bob bar, very Alaskan. Bear warning. So a lot of places we go, we film in a lot of remote areas. So we take these little float planes, which is always interesting. But if you have a chance to take one, it's definitely cool. That's our gear at the bottom. Super mosquito-y, so you need a different wardrobe too. The rain boots and the face mask for mosquitoes. This is a little plane going to Kodiak. So this is a location called Larsen Bay. So you fly to Kodiak, and then we had to take you fly to Kodiak, and then you take a small plane from Kodiak to Larsen Bay, and then we had to take a boat across the passage every day to get to where we were going. But this is a super rugged area, so there's just like crazy carcasses everywhere and weird washed up boats, jellyfish, sea stars. There's tons of sea stars in Alaska, lots of things that are alive. This is a float plane to this other area outside of Anchorage. It's just really pretty. Rivers from the air. So a lot of people live on these lakes that you take float planes out to see. Dragonfly. This is where we sleep on a good day. So this is our tents with the bear fence around it so that bears can't attack. This particular place had an indoor toilet, but you can see that there was a bear tooth mark on that handle. And this is the drinking coffee inside the mosquito net look, which is, I think, a good look for me. So yeah, mosquitoes don't tend to bite me there, but they are everywhere. This is on an IMAX film I did a quick shoot for. And so this is Juneau. And then we took a plane from Juneau onto to a place called Petersburg, Alaska. And we were on a boat for a couple of days with some female glaciologists doing some extra shots for, the film was called Extreme Weather, and it was about the effects of climate change on different places in the world. And this was about calving glaciers, melting glaciers in Alaska. So we had to practice getting into these suits. They're like emergency suits. This is me looking almost as good as I did in the mosquito net in case we fell overboard because it's so cold. But you can take a regular plane to Petersburg and go out on a boat and check out these glaciers, and it's really beautiful. So Denali, Denali, the town in Alaska, is different from Denali, the mountain. And so this is actually from a place called Petersville, which is different than Petersburg, where we just were. So in order to get here, this is actually the view from the place we were staying, which is a lodge in the middle of nowhere. We had to take snowmobiles. We'd usually start at night in the negative weather and take snowmobiles about 10 miles out to this location. This was very cold in the early morning, but so that's Denali, the mountain. Sunrise on Denali, and that's Denali behind us. And that's Denali here too. So it's really cool out there, and you can cross country ski, but it's not a huge tourist area. It's a big snowmobile area. Denali. This is the cuisine in that area. This is the burrito I bought in town a few days before and tried to make not freeze when I was working with toe warmers. So it's very cold out there, and try to keep your food from freezing. That's a burrito on a heater. That's an outhouse, and I didn't take pictures of this because it's recorded, but we got all the way out to the middle of nowhere, and immediately to the right, like 15 feet to the right, this is the place we were staying in. Immediately to the right was Sarah Palin's house. And like Todd Palin would come over for beers at night, which was interesting. So you never know who you're gonna find in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. Back about those connections. And this is just a sun eclipse, red moon out there. This is actually a reflection of Denali on the computer screen coming from the window. I have been to Alaska a million times. I've only seen the Northern Lights once, and this was it. So if you go, just know that you may or may not see them. Granted, I'm usually like for work going to sleep early, but this is just, I'm going to breeze through these. A lot of places in Alaska, the mode of transportation is difficult. ATVs, flat tires. That's actually me trying to get a spare tire down. So it's not glamorous. Those are my feet. Fall is my favorite time there. It's gorgeous. This is on a road to the Denali Highway, which is totally different from Denali too. So this is starting to go like interior Alaska, further north of Anchorage. This is a random igloo on the road. moose. So this is all on the Denali Highway, which is a road that runs from Cantwell to, I forget the other town, but there's my boyfriend again. So we were filming with sled dogs back here with a sled dog group. So they had really cute puppies. And again, this is the kind of places we're staying. So definitely not glamorous, but it gets you there. This is all on the Denali Highway too, behind where we were staying. That's a beluga whale on the way to Seward, Alaska. That's my boyfriend again, different dog. So Seward is one of my favorite places. It's you drive there from Anchorage, and it's a few hours south of Anchorage, and it's really beautiful. It's easy to get to, and it's super gorgeous. Super lush. Girdwood, Alaska, also very beautiful. You have to fly in order to get there. This is up towards Fairbanks, places where you can ATV only. This is me getting stuck in an ATV, having to be winched out. This is another place we slept in a bear fence. This is the lovely facilities, no shower, just that's all you get right there. And sometimes we sleep in places like this as well. So the Instagram pictures look cool, but just know that I'm here. I feel like, Sarah, tell me, we're going over, I guess, I mean, people can drop off as they want. I haven't hit Rwanda yet. Do you guys want me to wrap up or keep going? I don't know. Can we see it?
Yeah, just keep going. I think everybody can take off if they want, because I think everybody's still on.
I would enjoy it.
Here you go.
Cool. So yeah, sorry if I go over, feel free to pop off, and I'll just take my time, and whoever wants to stay on can stay on. So, okay. I have always been super, so anyway, just to wrap up Alaska, it's, I was kind of rushing through because I saw my time, but it's super cool. I really prefer the summer and fall there versus the winter. The winter is really dark and cold. Some people are into that. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of places you can go, but just be prepared that if you're kind of off the grid, the lodging might be different than you're normally expecting in the lower 48, and it is very much its own country, but it's wild and definitely a totally different, crazy place you should go. So actually, is this Morocco? This is Morocco, actually. Okay, so this is the Africa section. I'm just gonna blaze through Morocco, I think, but after Nepal, a couple years later, my parents wanted to go to Morocco. So we don't actually usually take these big extravagant family vacations, but we did these 2 times, and it was very cool. So this is Moroccan food. This is in Casablanca, Morocco, and those are all the satellite dishes trying to get all the programming I'm making in all these crazy places in the world, I like to think. This is Casablanca. So Morocco is actually a pretty big country, but and as you drive around, there's all these like fortress cities, kind of like, it's really reminiscent of Italy. These are some animals grazing. Those are the Atlas Mountains. And again, this part of the country, which my mom might be able to shout out what it was called, I don't remember, but it was really reminiscent of Italy. It's like ruins and stuff. The places where you can stay in Morocco are gorgeous. All the tile. It'd be a great place for a honeymoon. So this is actually in Fez, and then this is in Marrakesh. But yeah, it's like super, super romantic, the places you can stay. I love the food. Tagine, everything's tagine, which is baked in this pot. And these are vegetables and chicken, super healthy. Markets. Pomegranate Camels, like how we have, I don't know, we don't even really have horses, but I guess we have like dogs on the side of the road. They have camels, sometimes alive and sometimes not alive. Tile, really fashion forward motorcycle. This is Fez, which is a fortress city. So again, I'm not really the tourist person, so I'm not going to be able to rattle off a bunch of stats, but very visually interesting and cool. There's a lot of fabrics there, so there's all the different colors, and there's my dad and my sister and a couple locals. So we drove to the middle of nowhere, and we were about to go camping in the Sahara, and we got on our last hotel. We got out of the car at the last hotel, and there was a full-on movie set going on. We're like, what is this? And we were literally in the middle of nowhere in Morocco, and they were filming John Wick 3. This is the leftover set. And Halle Berry was next to me at the buffet, and we saw Keanu Reeves from a distance. So I work in television, but I don't actually ever work with famous people. I work with non-actors. So that was my one celebrity story in the middle of nowhere, Morocco. So the coolest part about this trip, I think, was staying in the Sahara. So I'm not super into riding animals, but the rest of the group took camels out to our campsite, which was in the middle of nowhere. So we went camping out in the Sahara Desert for a few days. And this is our site that was just for us. Nobody else was around for miles. It's very, 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 very plush in there. So not like Alaska. Yeah, I am used to camping in much worse conditions. I was a little out of my comfort zone here. I was like, this is too nice. That's our guide, Muhammad, who became like our brother. I always say he's my parents' son that they never had. They were like 2 peas in a pod or 3 peas in a pod. The stars are amazing, incredible out there. There's barely any natural light, or like light pollution. It's my sister out in the Sahara. So we're literally out here by ourselves for a couple days, and it was very cool. That's our camp. Oh, so there are fossils everywhere. Like, I guess Morocco, and probably if you're into this kind of thing, you would know this, but Morocco is like a huge base of fossils. So just walking around, you can go to these just huge, vast open spaces where you can find all these crazy fossils. Those are like some sort of teeth, fossilized teeth. So my sister and I were kind of sick of we needed a break from the tour, like the sites. My parents really like to see the sites, and I like to meet the people. So my sister and I took a break one day, and I was like, we had seen this little kind of mud fortress village, and I was like, Di, let's go sit over there, and I bet you if we sit over there, someone's going to invite us into their house. And sure enough, we sat outside, and this family invited us in, no shared languages. They ended up feeding us, giving us cake. The next day we brought back the Tupperware with my parents. And the coolest part is 2 years later, just the other week, this girl, the teenager, I must have written down my name when I was there, and she found me on Instagram, and now we're like WhatsApping all the time and connecting on Instagram. So that was really cool. This is like literally a tiny little village. They live in like a two very small room little house, and no shared languages. They cooked for us, sent us home with cake, and it was just incredible. Just imagine doing that in this country, just taking in random people off the street that don't speak your language and feeding them, sending them home with a Tupperware. It was very, very cool. It's their little son. He's super cute. And then this is another kid we met on that same afternoon, and we had tea with him. Some other random Morocco. This is my last night saying goodbye to my brother, my Moroccan brother from another mother, Muhammad, and then that's my sister. That's the family. Okay. Rwanda. I'm gonna just give the short version of this, but I've always been obsessed with Rwanda. It's a tiny little country surrounded by a lot of big countries, similar to Nepal. And most people go to Rwanda for the gorillas, and Sarah, who's running this, has been there for the gorillas, and I would love to go back for the gorillas. But what's always interested me the most about the country is there was a horrible genocide in 1994, and there are a couple disturbing pictures that I'm going to show next. So if you want to close your eyes or not listen for a few minutes, if that is going to bother you, here's your warning. But there was a genocide in 1994, and 1 million people were killed. Nearly 1 million people were killed in 100 days. But it's a super peaceful country now, and it's always been fascinating to me, like how you can live next to the person who murdered your parents and be friends. Like kind of that level of forgiveness has always been super fascinating to me. So I really wanted to go there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful country. And actually Emily Steingart, who's a Breckenridge local, had worked with an organization called Timbo. This is Rwandan coffee. Rwandan zebra butt. She had worked with an organization called Timbo, which is based in Massachusetts, and they do mind-body trauma reduction trainings. And I had stumbled across their website, and they were doing a service project in Rwanda, working with genocide survivors, teaching them this trauma reduction program. So it was very cool. So I went over as part of that, and I went over as a student. So I was not one of the trainers, but I was learning alongside the Rwandans. And the Rwandans were mostly social workers, psychologists, or community trauma volunteers, and also genocide survivors themselves. So the group actually did get to go see the gorillas at the end, but for me, I guess I wasn't able to stay because I had to come back for work, but my feeling was, and I would love to see the gorillas. Like it's high on my list to go back, but I could always pay a tour to take me to go see the gorillas. I could never become friends with a bunch and learn from a bunch of genocide survivors. So I jumped on the trip for that. So this is the Genocide Memorial, and this is where there's some disturbing images if you don't want to see. So it says never again. This is actually at the end of the trip. We went to the Genocide Memorial with all the people we had been working with who were genocide survivors themselves, and some of their relatives have their remains in the mass graves here. So it was incredibly emotional. The genocide started, and I won't go into a lot of this, but the Germans, followed by the Belgians, had essentially taken the Rwandan people and measured their noses and come up with different reasons why they basically made up tribes and said, you're part of this tribe and you're part of that tribe, the Hutus and the Tutsis, and so you're different. And if you're Tutsi, you probably had slightly lighter skin, you had better jobs, and basically the Hutus felt, it's very complicated and long, but the Hutus felt like they had been wronged and declared civil war essentially on the other tribe of Tutsis. So Hutus and Tutsis were married, so husbands would kill their wives. These are people who have been lost at the Genocide Memorial. But it's really long and complicated, seeing what's happened in the States for the past, few years with all the separation, you can totally see how something like this would happen in misinformation campaigns. And if you study it, it's really fascinating and a good lesson for our country to be aware of. Here are all the names of people, but they've done a ton of, peace rehabilitation, and now it's a super peaceful place to live. So even children were killed, babies, these were killed as babies, and so those are human skulls, and I'm only showing it because I think it's just important to see what can happen. And it was mostly with machetes and hand tools, so it was like neighbor to neighbor killing each other with machetes. And I'm going to get into happier stuff soon, but so mass graves at the memorial. so people can have a place, because a lot of people don't know where their relatives just disappeared. They don't know where they are. So when they were found, they were brought to the mass graves. This is the Hotel Rwanda. If you guys have seen the film, this is the hotel where everyone was hidden. And it's, yeah, there's been some recent turmoil with the guy who actually hid everyone and saved them, was pulled back into the country under, I don't know, you'll have to read about it. But anyway, this to me, I mean, it's years later, but to me that just, like, you see things, for me, I would see like images when I was there that would just send you back to whatever was happening in 1994, where in all these peaceful places, like the entire country was a hand combat massacre. And so this, like, to me, it was just like some child, and this is not left over from the genocide, but you know, I was drawing associations of, like, you know, children that fled their swings, and I don't know, it's really horrible. But all that's super important, and what had fascinated me is how the people can be so joyful and amazing, and truly Rwanda and Nepal are the two countries that are just the most amazing, warm, friendly places. There are very few older people left because, and Francois here is not even that old, but all the adults were killed. So it's a very young country. Most people are like in their 20s. But look at that joy. I mean, when's the last time you felt like that? This is like one of the first days, like this woman just reached out and grabbed my hand and squeezed, and just like the warmest people. And there she is. Fabrics. This is Kigali, the capital city. And it's actually a really, really, really clean city. Actually, this is out of order. This is just out in the country, just some street scenes. But this is Kigali. Like, you imagine Africa, you might imagine it different. Rwanda, and this is part of what's been able to make them peaceful, is they have very strict rules. Like, you can't even walk on the grass. Like, it's illegal to walk on the grass because it like messes it up. So it's really immaculately clean, very organized. This is the view from a library, and this library was just gorgeous. This is the library, cafe in the library in the middle of Kigali. So it might not be what you'd imagine Rwanda to be. It's just a beautiful library. It's just some street scenes. Pigs on the road. And just so much interesting wildlife. It's interesting too, there's barely any dogs, because the dogs, when everyone was killed, the dogs started eating the human bodies. And so then they killed all the dogs. So you don't see a lot of domestic animals. People don't really have pets. But so this is Lake Mouhasi, and this is where our training took place. So we were on this lake for like 10 days with the local Rwandans, and then a group from the East Coast, who I think some of them might be on this call again. I can't really see. But today, if you're on here, I don't know. So this is our training, and just lots of trauma reduction. You can see she's a trauma healing volunteer in her community. So it was yoga based, breathing, releasing trauma from your body, and then they were taking these techniques out and teaching their communities. So it was like train the trainer type of a program. And so we were just all mixed together and all became super, super tight. And just the joy. So these are not the people we were in the training with. This is just a random village we went to, but just again, the joy and energy you can see from people. Youth volunteers and community policing. So they have all these kind of things in order to keep the peace. You're no longer allowed to say what tribe you were from. You just all have to be Rwandans. So, but trauma like lives in your body and it doesn't just go away. So this program taught people how to release the trauma and how to bring it into their communities, because a lot of people are running around with PTSD trying to live their lives without like a lot of trauma reduction training. So that's what this was, because, you know, most of these people all of these people have experienced the genocide in some capacity, whether they lost their parents, their children, their cousin, or they were born after the genocide, and they're intergenerationally, their parents were part of it. So it's just, if you live in the country, you have been affected, and that trauma stays in the body unless you learn to let it go. So that's what this program did. And some of you on the call may have actually donated to it. So here are some photos. So this is one of the cooler things we did. So it was super intensive training, and toward the end, we went on a safari, and this is not normally something I would want to do because, again, I tend to just shy away for whatever reason from the tourist things. But we went with the Rwandans, and a lot of them most of them, 99% of them, had never seen the animals in their own country. And so this is actually, a couple of them had never been on a swing set before. So this is the first time. Olive on the right in her Mickey Mouse, this is her first swing ever. This was really cool. She was pumped. I love that. So we went and saw all these animals with the locals, this elephants, and a lot of these animals were actually killed during the genocide too. So they've whatever the word is when you put them back in and help them grow again. So you can go on safaris all over, and the group also went to a chimpanzee place. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a giraffe in the rain, and it really looked like this, and I don't know how, but it was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. Just giraffe like waiting for the storm to pass. Dragonfly. But you can go on a chimpanzee trek. My group did that after I left. There's so much amazing wildlife in this country, and the gorillas are amazing. Like the group, if any of them are on, they can talk after, but they were like right by the gorillas, and it's just, anyone that's ever done it, Sarah can talk about it. It's like just epic. Monkeys. So you can see like the shock on her face, having never seen like these kind of animals in her country. She's like, oh my gosh. So this was just really cool and joyous to be able to share it with them. So, it wasn't just, the Americans coming in and doing the tourist thing. It was the Americans and the Rwandans enjoying their country together, which was really cool. But everywhere you go in these woods, you can't, help but think what had once happened here. There's mass killings, and it's so beautiful, and so much bad stuff has happened. So it's super interesting country. It's just a cow. That's African beer. Ooh, the tea. The tea was so good. It was like fresh lemon, ginger, amazingness. This is the end of our training, just dancing celebrations. That's our group, part of our group. It's part of our group. And it was just really amazing, and I would love to go back there. Just to give you an idea, so the last day I was leaving early, and I walked past this church, and I'm not Christian, but the music was beautiful, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go in there. But it was a totally local place, and so I just walked up to the door, and these locals came, ran outside, grabbed my hand, took me in, holding my hand, sat me down, and like, it was a small church, and everyone's looking because I was definitely the only non-Rwandan in there, and they stopped the service and made me stand up and introduce myself and welcomed me, and it was just so cool. So again, like, I don't know, I encounter all these experiences everywhere, and I have to ask myself, like, would I do the same thing to a stranger if I saw them? It's just, our country is different. So just amazing people in different countries. Little kids are so cute. This is my friend Renata, and we were at the Genocide Memorial, and I got emotional, and she is the Rwandan, and she was comforting me. So just really beautiful. My friend's daughter, Emma, that was the first white person she had met. So these are just faces of joy. The Rwandans are awesome. You can just like, they're so cool. Again, my phone dings nonstop from them, and I can't wait to go back. It's such a cool country. And so if you do go and see the gorillas, I highly recommend you also see the Genocide Memorial, and also find a way to connect with the community, because it's just, the people are absolutely epic. And, in certain places they, don't see a lot of tourists. So we'd pass them in buses and, or, whatever we were in, and they'd kind of look at us really timidly. And then the second we'd wave, they just light up and smile and wave right back. So just beautiful people. Okay, so this is the speed round of travel. So this is the finale, the almost finale. This is just an assortment of places I've loved that I've gone. This is Brussels being let loose in a chocolate factory. That's chocolate flowing from a tap. So that was my dream. Scottish Highlands. It's a cool place. Spider in the Scottish Highlands. Thailand, this is Bangkok. Markets in Bangkok. Awesome, amazing people in Bangkok. This is in Phuket. So we were here for a food show as well, and Thai food is the best food. This is a Buddhist temple and a Buddhist sculpture. This is I think they're called the PP Islands. We just, before our flight, we had a few hours in the day. We went out on a boat and it's just gorgeous. But this is where a lot of the tsunamis happened, and there's a ton of trash still in the water, which I think is probably partially from that and partially from littering, but man, is it gorgeous. Bermuda. Chamonix, one of my other favorite places on earth, in France. And this is another super cool bucket list place that I didn't know about. You can stay at a hut under the halfway point of the Aiguille du Midi, which is the big like ski lift in Chamonix, and the huts are equipped with wine and pie, and you can watch the sunset over the glacier, and it is just the coolest. And I know some of you guys have probably done all sorts of trekking in this area, but I would definitely come back to Chamonix and do some trekking. So I think it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. This is just from that hut going on a trail run. It's just incredible. It's like my favorite mountain range ever, that shot. This is looking over San Francisco on the way to the Olympics, and here's just a couple shots of the Olympics. Again, this is the speed round, just around the world. So this is in South Korea, and I didn't get to experience the culture as much as I would have liked to because we were working so much. So you kind of had to choose like whether you were going to choose the Olympic experience or the South Korean experience. So it's definitely on my list of places to go. And selfies, she's got her selfie game going. But it was a very cool country, and some of you guys might recognize DC. He was over there, Breck local. Here are some temples in South Korea. I got like one day off. This is India, in Goa. I had no idea how gorgeous it was down in southern India. The coastline is really beautiful. This is Delhi. So people in India like are totally happy to smile for the camera. It's like really impressive. No matter where I went, they're like super into it. Whereas in Morocco, like everyone would hide from the camera. So it's interesting. You can tell a lot about the culture. You know, just people's comfort level with strangers is just different everywhere, and it's not better or worse. But this is a little girl begging in India. India is one of my favorite countries too, but it's super intense, and it's amazing though. This is in the Goa area, and there's this Portuguese influenced portion of India, which was a surprise, with these cool doors. So this is on the coast in Goa. Here's a little boy in Delhi. This guy has the coolest eyes ever, like crystal. And I just like went up to him and like pointed at my camera and was like, "Can I take your picture?" And he just said, "Yeah." Like, so whenever someone points a camera at me, I just try a stranger. I just let them do it because I figure it's my karma at this point. This is a fish market. Again, these cool doors. India is the coolest country. It's so cool. This is, I was on a food show and they were making these sausages. Italy, this is Livorno in Tuscany. we were doing a story about olive oil. So here's olive farms, sausages. This is the Pope's personal pesto chef feeding me pesto. So this was a life moment too. The Pope has his own personal pesto chef, and he's like the funniest, nicest man. This is in the Parmigiano Reggiano area of Italy, where they make Parmigiano Reggiano, or the Parma region, that is. Each one of these blocks costs $900 or so, or 900 euros. These are all aged. But if you want to save yourself the trip to Italy, Costco also has them straight from Parma for $949.99. So it's good to know. Italy, Venice. This is on the coast of Genoa, north of Cinque Terre. It's just super beautiful. This is Genoa, Florence, Venice, Bermuda. It's the Dominican Republic. And again, we just said people were super friendly there. We took pictures of these kids, and then next thing you know, we were posing for a picture with everyone with them. This is again for that food show, kid flying kites. This is Colombia with La Policia. Colombia is really cool. Colombia is my top 3 favorite countries. It would be like Nepal, Rwanda, Colombia. People there were super awesome. Very similar to Nepal. They're like the Latin version of gentle Buddhist, even though they're not. That's just how I would describe it. So it's like Nepal, but Latin, but totally different. But that was the vibe I got. Super colorful. Everything's colorful there. And the people are really friendly. It's some people in a little village. This is North Carolina, Costa Rica. Oh, and for, this is Costa Rica too. And for the almost grand finale, a slothing. I had never seen a sloth before, so you see he doesn't really move. But the moral of the story is, even though I have been all around the world, there is nothing like Colorado, and especially Summit County. So I've been everywhere, but there's still, this is, I think, one of the most beautiful places on earth. This is Breckenridge. And so if COVID has taught me one thing, it's to appreciate where I am, and that there's so much more to see right here at home. So even though we're all jonesing to travel, don't miss the beauty right in front of us. That's Eagle County. And I also really think that Summit County has a community unlike anywhere else I've ever been, full of amazing people. And it's super unique and special community. So I can say that with confidence, having been a lot of places. So as much as you might want to go elsewhere, the magic is right at home. The end.